So I've just drawn up here a theoretical, of course, it doesn't have to be a straight line, but our theoretical demand schedule here. Now, I said that our law of demand will hold as long as the only thing that changes is the cost. But it's entirely possible that other things change as well, right? As I already mentioned, it's possible that this dot will move out and to the right. It's possible that at the same time this dot would move out and to the right. What would cause all of these dots to move? Well, one thing could be these, by the way, are what are going to be called as the determinants, or what I'll refer to as the determinants of demand. One of them is preferences. How much do people like chocolate? Now, if people suddenly woke up and discovered that they liked chocolate a lot more than they did the day before, all of those dots would move out and to the right. If they woke up and decided that they liked chocolate less, at this cost, people would consume less. At this cost, people would consume less. At this cost, people would consume less. And then we could connect those dots and we would have our new demand schedule. Now, I'll just warn you, there's a tendency that students love to try and memorize the line moving. I've discovered over the years that is borrowing trouble. The thing to do is, it's easy for us to think about the dots moving left and right or up and down. But it's a little harder for people to think in terms of the line. I don't think in terms of the line. I think about the dots. So one of the things that would cause the dots all to move and result in a change in demand, not just a change in the quantity demanded, is preferences. What's another one? Well, if it was for chocolate and this was in air here, what would happen if we doubled everybody's lung capacity? Basically, right? We'd have a new demand schedule way the heck out here. Now, that's usually not what we're talking about. What we're going to talk about here is what's called income. So if people's income goes up, what happens? Do people buy more of the good or less of the good? Well, this one's tricky. It depends on the good. So if your income doubled, would you buy more cup of soup or less cup of soup? Most of us, I think, would buy less cup of soup. At that cost, and if our incomes went up, we would buy less. That's what's called an inferior good. When income goes up and people buy less of the good at all costs, that's an inferior good. But most of us know that for most goods and services, if we doubled our income, most goods, we would actually buy more of them. All of these dots would shift out. At all costs, we would consume more. Those types of goods are called normal goods. Now, we need to make a statement about what type of good we think it is, because if we don't, we actually don't know whether the demand schedule should move in or out. All right. What else? Well, the cost of substitutes. And here I'm going to put in the cost of close substitutes, because hopefully you remember that anything can be a substitute for anything else on the margin. So if we were to think, instead of this being chocolate, we thought about maybe Pepsi, and we had a decrease in the cost of Coke. At this cost for Pepsi, would people buy more or less? People would buy less, wouldn't they? Because some of these people who previously were buying Pepsi are going to say, you know what, I have a pretty good substitute that's lower in cost. I'm not going to consume the Pepsi. I'm going to go over and consume the Coke. And at this cost, there would be a reduction as well, and we would have a new demand schedule. So that would be cost of close substitutes. That's another determinant. Cost of, try and have enough space here to write it properly, complementary complements with an E. That has, this E here is important. If it was an I, that would mean the cost of people saying nice things about you, which is not what we mean by this. So cost of compliments. In other words, maybe this is hot dog buns. And the price of hot dogs goes down. What's going to happen? In this instance, price of hot dog buns, right, at this cost, previously people were buying this many buns. Now, if the price of hot dogs goes down, what do you think is going to happen? Pretty sure at that cost, people will buy more. At this cost, people will buy more. At this cost, people will buy more. And we're going to have a new demand schedule. That's a change in demand, remember, not just a change in the quantity demanded. On the other hand, if the cost of hot dogs went up, instead of increasing at all costs, people would consume fewer hot dogs. And then finally, for one last piece here, expectations and information. Now this one's tricky because guess what? There's a lot of information out there in the world. What we're talking about here, expectations and information about benefit. And this is important. You're not going to see that in the textbook, but it's an important distinction. It helps make sense out of this. It's going to be expectations and information about benefit are going to be what. So if I expect to get more benefit out of these hot dog buns, what will happen? At this cost, will I buy more or fewer? I'll buy more. At this cost, I'll buy more, right? We have a new demand schedule. On the other hand, if we expect less benefit out of this, it's going to shift in. Now, I'll show you another way of thinking about this, basically, that will illustrate it. We can also think about the dots moving up or down. But these here are going to be our determinants of demand. In other words, if none of these things change, what happens to demand? Nothing. Nothing. We will have no change in demand. We will move along our existing demand schedule. There might be a change in the quantity demanded, but there will not be a change in the whole schedule. Now, obviously, telling stories and practicing with these is hard. But I should have some assignments available for you that you can work through to start telling some better stories about working with this. Now, it's going to feel a little bit strange because, like, what do I care about this? Why do I care about demand? What's it really telling me? We're going to get to that. But for now, just focus on using these and making sense out of them. The big one that students oftentimes, the two that people typically have the biggest issue with, one is, as I mentioned, expectations and information. What matters to consumers is the expectations and information about benefit, not about other stuff, right? The other stuff is like whether somebody has teeth. Are they romantically interested in you? Don't know. That information is irrelevant to me. So that one, and then the other one is income. With income, you have to make a statement. You don't have to know for sure, but you have to at least talk about whether it's a normal or an inferior good in order for me to assess the quality of your thinking on that.